Hello and welcome to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz, and tonight we're coming to you live 11:37 p.m. ET, Columbus, Ohio. We're going to break down the Bears' 2019 victory over the Buccaneers. A lot of questionable Tom Brady memes coming out of this one. Also going to go over some injuries before the Week 5 NFL slate comes along. Hope everyone enjoyed that bad Thursday night football game. You know, it's a kind of a pastime of mine to cherish these, MAC type NFL games that we usually get on Thursday night. NFL took away our baby, took away Jaguars Titans this year. So it's good to see, the Buccaneers and Bears at least hold up a little bit of, I guess a tribute to some of those Thursday night games over the years. So I want to get right into what we saw tonight between the Bears and Bucs. And, first of all, just talking about Brady and this offense at first. I mean, he was just getting pressured all night long. You couldn't really go more than a down or two without seeing Khalil Mack in the backfield. And, this offensive line, it was a position where we knew, okay, Brady, he's used to having all day to throw. He's not exactly as mobile as he used to be, and it was never really a guy that was mobile anyway. While the arm strength still might be there, this is a concern moving forward, as we have seen with Drew Brees a little bit over the years, especially in those Vikings playoff games. Once teams can really get pressure, especially up the middle, it just can ruin this offense quicker than anything. So Brady, his accuracy looked fine out there. It wasn't like the arm strength again has gone anywhere. He'll have better days when they're not facing a defense of the caliber of the Bears. But yeah, just wasn't a good night at all. Had multiple memeable moments. He was screaming at his offensive line during the third after taking a couple sacks. Khalil Mack sacked him and then was kind of staring at him. We just got a prolonged eye roll out of Brady that you'd love to see. And then to top everything off, Brady tried to zip one over the middle on fourth down, incomplete, game over. Held up to four fingers, indicating that he thought there was still one more down. As Troy Aikman said, sometimes, apparently, I don't know, I've never played quarterback in a real life game before, but as Aikman said, sometimes I guess when these quarterbacks have to spike the ball, sometimes they can get absent-minded and forget what down it is. Either way, whatever it was, again, just several pretty hilarious, memeable moments from Brady. He'll have better weeks ahead in terms of fantasy and just better games as a whole. We're still seeing this Buccaneers offense come together without Goblin. Certainly not helping matters, and just kind of the banged up state of everyone that was even trying to gut it out tonight just didn't do him any favor. So overall, completed 25 of 41 passes, 253 yards in the score with those 3 sacks taken. Not great. In the backfield, though, Ronald Jones just absolutely dominating opportunity here. And, he's been a guy where I know he had the drops. This is someone that last week, everyone was just hating on him for not being able to go out there and make more use of all those targets he got. But truly, we got to give Rojo some respect at some point for what he's been able to do as just a runner, not a receiver, as a runner this year, because he was making all sorts of big plays happen. Had a long run in the third quarter of 37 yards where he really made the safety look stupid. It wasn't a great game. Again, as a runner, he's looking good, and the broken tackles are looking good. As a receiver, we kind of saw more of the same. 5 targets, caught only 3 of them for 19 yards. Pretty hilarious in the first, it was in the first half, but Brady throws to Rojo. He catches it going to the ground, and he rolls into the end zone. No one touched him. They ruled it an incomplete pass, and Rojo just shook his head and tossed the ball to the ref, and it seemed like he believed it was an incomplete pass. And you watch the replay, and he caught it. You never see this where a guy, catches the ball, they rule it incomplete. Usually he's popping up and calling over the sideline to do something about it. Not Rojo. It's been so bleak for this dude over the past few weeks that even when the ref was like, hey, you didn't catch that, Rojo just kind of threw his hands up in there and was like, all right, guess you're right, man. So again, great game overall from Rojo. Just continuing to see some of the struggles through the passing game. And unfortunately, that's going to limit his true workhorse ceiling here moving forward. I think we're always going to see the Keyshawn Vaughn, or when he gets healthy, LaShawn McCoy taking away some of his pass down work. But as long as Leonard Fournette, stays out of the picture, which tonight he was emergency only saw him out there on the field during their victory formation snap. Didn't actually record a carry or a target. As long as Fournette is out of the picture, Rojo, we can fire him up as a legit RB2. Again, the RB1 type of stuff that we're hoping for, not really going to be in the picture as long as he's just not getting really enough work in the passing game. And even when he is getting enough work, he's not doing enough with it. But as long as he's dominating snaps like this, 42 snaps in this game. Keyshawn Vaughn only had 13, and Fournette again only had that one that was on the kneel down before halftime. So true RB2 stuff from Ronald Jones here. Moving on to some of the wide receivers. Mike Evans started off the game with a 2-yard touchdown. The guy's just an absolute monster inside the red zone right now. And, when him and Brady are clicking the way they are, it's pretty impressive what they're able to do out there. He's been killing people on the fades recently, but this one took a little jab step outside, came back in on the slant. Nothing they can do with someone that big. So he ended up catching 5 of 9 targets, 41 yards, and a score. Had a chance for a long touchdown. I don't know if he lost it in the light or what it was, but he kind of got twisted around, one of those where he looked over the one shoulder, looked over the other ones. Could have been a long 40-yard score. So, didn't have it this week. But again, as long as he is out there and Godwin's gone, he's going to be flirting with 10 targets every single week. And we know Evans, with Brady back there, can do a ton with that. Continue to treat him as a wide receiver 1. I'd say Tyler Johnson was the next most impressive Buccaneers receiver in this game. Had a really nice long play for 35 yards in the first half where he broke multiple tackles. Looked like he could do a lot of good things with the ball in his hands. Finished with 6 targets, as did Gronk and Cameron Brate. So it's not like Tyler Johnson has, this established role even without Godwin in there where we can lean on it fantasy-wise. But, when we had Scotty Miller without a single target the entire game, I know that was probably pissing people off. It is going to be tough to go back to Scotty when we're seeing guys like Tyler Johnson go out and make these plays. And look, Scotty was out there, and it was Mike Evans playing 50 snaps, Tyler Johnson 47, Scotty Miller 37, and then Cyril Grayson, excuse me on that pronunciation, at 9. So Scotty was out there in 3 wide receiver sets, just unfortunately wasn't able to get anything going with that. Rob Gronkowski, 3 catches for 52 yards on 6 targets, caught a screen and actually picked up 23 yards and made a dude miss. Immediately went to the sideline, though. I saw someone tweet the old Mike Tyson interview where he's saying, my back, it's broken, spinal, and it was with the caption, every time Gronk goes to the sideline. So, funny stuff there. He did look hobbled, and he still doesn't look anything like, kind of the future Hall of Famer, all-time, potentially great tight end that we've come to love over the years. But he is getting more involved in the passing game, and, with Brate also catching 5 passes, 44 yards, Tanner Hudson having 4 targets and being really involved early. It is good to still see Gronk getting his pass game usage increasing here with all the injuries they're going through. Still not a situation where I think we can trust him as a tight end 1, but he's going to find the end zone eventually. And I think, treating him as a touchdown dependent tight end 2 will pay off at some point. So that's it on the Buccaneers side of the ball. Again, just all the credit in the world to the Bears defense for making this one tough on them. I think it's a situation that moving forward, we'll see this Buccaneers offense click more weeks than not. But, it's tough to go into Soldier Field and come away looking good. And, it was tough for Nick Foles and company to go into Soldier Field and look too good as well. Just wasn't really a great performance by any stretch of the imagination for Foles. A win is a win is a win. I mean, I get it, but just really from the first half on, I mean, he missed Darnell Mooney on what should have been just a walk-in 40-yard touchdown after a great route by the rookie. And just, again, an atrocious miss that was getting all the hate on the old Twitter sphere. Nick Foles did come back well. I mean, after that drive, he was still kind of throwing fearlessly. I love the way he just chucks it up to Allen Robinson, no problem. 16 targets for A-Rob. Only David Montgomery had more than 5. He was at 8. Everyone else was at 5 or fewer targets. So I like that Foles, understands that the passing game needs to flow through A-Rob. Just sometimes it was like, what are you doing, man? I mean, just hilariously bad defensive pass interference drawn from A-Rob on a pass that just was nowhere close. So, pretty iffy. Roughing the passer penalty 4 minutes in the fourth quarter on 3rd down. That seemed like, okay, maybe this is where the drive starts. Drive didn't start, but they got the ball back, went down there, and Foles threw a nice little wheel route to David Montgomery under pressure to put them in a position for the game-winning field goal. So, hey, rebounded from a rough start, got the job done. It does look like Nagy's sticking with Foles through thick and thin over Trubisky at this point. Bears are 4-1. Nick Foles is, a big reason why they got these two wins against the Falcons and now the Buccaneers. So credit to him. In terms of Fantasyland, Buccaneers are a tough defense. I know Justin Herbert looked pretty good last week, but particularly against running backs and just overall, I mean, things Carlton Davis and Jamal Dean are doing out there, they're really solid at all 3 levels of this unit. So don't sleep on them, and in matchups that we're going to face them moving forward, we're going to have to kind of lower the expectations overall. I do think Foles eventually could be this boomer bust QB2 at some point, but I don't know. It's looking rough with this offense right now. Again, this was a tough matchup. The Colts were a tough matchup last week. Foles looked legit great against the Falcons. I know a lot of guys look great against the Falcons, but again, I don't think this offense is going to be quite as unwatchable moving forward once they get away from some of these tough matchups. David Montgomery continuing to largely dominate the backfield's touches and snaps. He ended up playing 43 snaps on the game. Cordero Patterson was just at 14. So again, he is a 3-down workhorse with Tariq Cohen out of the picture. 10 carries, 29 yards, short goal line touchdown on the ground. Caught 7 of 8 targets for 30 yards through the air. Montgomery's fine as a receiver. Soft hand. It's not like he's just dropping everything out there. Caught a nice job on the wheel. I made the joke on Twitter that, Montgomery, you need 3 yards, he'll get you 3 yards. You need 4 yards, he'll get you 3 yards. I mean, that's what it seems like out there. Definitely doesn't have, a big time burst or anything like that. But hey, they're feeding him like a workhorse back. Again, Buccaneers this week, Colts last week. There's going to be better matchups on the horizon for Montgomery. As long as he's getting this type of work, he needs to be inside the top 20 backs on a weekly basis. My guy Cordero Patterson had a pretty nice game for himself. Just truly the best kick returner of all time. Chill out, Bears fans. I understand Devin Hester is the best punt returner of all time, but Cordero doesn't return kicks, and he is, to this day, the most efficient kick returner of all time in yards per kick return. Did some good things tonight, too, as a receiver. 3 catches, 38 yards, 3 carries, 7 yards. Had a nice 25-yard catch on a wheel route. Buccaneers, we're letting that wheel route get him all night long. So, again, it's the Montgomery show, but I got to give a shout out to my guy Cordero after that good game. And, yeah, the passing game, it's Allen Robinson and everyone else. Caught 10 of the 16 targets for 90 yards. And just can't stress enough how good A-Rob is. I mean, Yak going up there making contested catches. He is a true alpha beast, number 1 wide receiver, and you'd love to see him getting a target total that a player of his talent warrants. He is a top 10 receiver every week in fantasy football land. Otherwise, Mooney, 2 catches for 15 yards. Again, should have had a much bigger game if Foles was able to find him. Anthony Miller, 4 catches, 28 yards, but just can't find the field as often as he should be. I mean, we look at these wide receiver snaps, and we got Mooney at 35 snaps, Miller only at 22, A-Rob at 48. So truly, I mean, even Mooney isn't getting a full-time role at this point. Javon Wims was right there with 12 snaps as well, and even Teddy Ginn snuck on the field for 3. So Mooney, he's been kind of this not popular waiver addition, but he is like making it to these columns. He is, potentially a number 2 receiver in this offense more weeks than not with Tariq Cohen out of the picture. Just realize that this passing game, is not going to be able to elevate multiple high-end receivers more weeks than not. Jimmy Graham, though. Shout out Jimmy Graham. Awesome one-handed catch for a touchdown right before the half. Right after, he probably should have had a touchdown on a slightly easier play. It wasn't a drop, and the defender made a nice play, kind of knocking the ball out, but you would have liked to see him hold on to it. Again, he made up for it, and he's been having a nice little year for himself with these touchdowns. Only 33 yards. I mean, he's still anyone's idea of a touchdown-dependent tight end, but you know what? When bye weeks happen and stuff comes up, Jimmy Graham treating him as that touchdown-dependent higher-end tight end too. I think he's earned that treatment at this point. So Bears 20, Buccaneers 19. Hope everyone enjoyed that bad football game. Even a bad football game is a good football game, particularly on Thursday night, everyone. So quick shout out to our sponsors before we get going on some injuries. Monkey Knife Fight. So all first-time depositors at Monkey Knife Fight that put at least $20 in their account while using promo code PFF will receive a free PFF Edge annual subscription, $40 value for just $20, and you'll get the opportunity to turn that $20 into even more money playing daily fantasy and prop games at one of the fastest-growing fantasy sports sites in the USA and Monkey Knife Fight. Go to Monkey Knife Fight and deposit your $20 with promo code PFF today to receive your free PFF Edge annual subscription. I want to go through some injuries now. And, so for those that don't know, official designations will get released on Friday. Usually they're all in by about 6 p.m., depending on some of the West Coast teams. And that's when they're, questionable or doubtful or out or in. And then we'll get the official word from the NFL, obviously Sunday morning, usually starting about 11:30 a.m. For the 1 p.m. Eastern game. So this is all, just looking at what we've heard from reporters, what we've heard from teams, and what we see in the early week practice participation. So starting off with the Falcons, Calvin Ridley still dealing with this ankle injury, but he's fine, just been limited in practice a little bit. Keep going back to the well. Even with that goose egg last week in half-point PPR and standard leagues, Ridley is still the wide receiver 1 in fantasy. You love to see it. Julio is not looking so good with the hamstring injury. Wasn't able to get into practice on Thursday. With him out. Olamide Zacchaeus, sorry on that pronunciation. He's a realistic option. I do still think Russell Gage is going to be a number 2 in this offense with Julio out, but you know what? We've seen this Zacchaeus dude have had like a long 93-yard touchdown catch last year. I mean, him and Matt Ryan have some level of chemistry. I'd be a little hesitant in season long, but, as a cheap flyer in DFS, I do not hate it. Ravens wide receiver Marquis Brown, limited with a knee injury, but he's expected to be fine. Same thing with Lamar Jackson, who hasn't been practicing this week, but Adam Schefter already came out and said just precautionary. He's fine. Mark Andrews, a little bit more of a concern. A midweek addition to injury report with a thigh injury. Thighs, again, I'm very far from a doctor, but thigh injury to me sounds better than a knee or a hamstring or even like a foot or something like that. But it would be nice to see him get a full practice in on Friday before we go to the game, because you look at the tight end pricing on DFS, obviously all these guys, including Hollywood, who again has within a fingertip on having potentially 3 to 5 more touchdowns this year once him and Jackson get on the same page. He's got more deep ball targets than anyone. Keep going back the well with Hollywood. It's going to happen, people. But Mark Andrews in DFS is the one that's interesting because there's just a lot of ownership going to guys right around him in that top 4, but not so much to Andrews. And certainly don't think the Bengals are a team that's going to keep this passing game in check. DeAndre Hopkins came back practicing in full with this ankle injury. He looked fine out there last week, in terms of after the catch. Didn't seem to be banged up. Continue to treat him as a top 2 option. Bills running back Zack Moss still limited with his toe injury. Look, if he stays out, Devin Singletary is playing like literally in every single down role. And we saw that when Rex Burkhead has a big week. Like, just because someone, aka Josh Allen, is stealing the reps near the goal line a lot of these times, these rush attempts, that doesn't mean that, we're going to even have these situations every week. Singletary could easily get a nice multi-touchdown game if he just finds a way to get in the end zone from, more than 3 yards out. So he's been playing so well, tied with Josh Jacobs for the most broken tackles in the league. Even if Moss is in there, I want to go back the well with Singletary this week. John Brown and Cole Beasley dealing with calf and foot injuries respectively. Banged up, but should be out there. Hopefully this game happens. We'll see, but it doesn't seem like, other than Moss, too many of these guys have a big chance of missing the game. Quick note on the Panthers. I've seen some Ian Thomas hype this week. I like Ian Thomas. We share the same name. Why wouldn't I? But the guy is truly talented. And like last year when Olsen was out, and over the past few years when Olsen's been out, Ian Thomas has played a full-time role. But this year he kind of came in banged up. And we've actually seen Chris Manhertz, who's been limited this week with an ankle injury, play more snaps than Ian Thomas. Thomas is the main receiving guy. He could still put up some numbers this week, even if Manhertz guts it through. But we want to see guys on the field as much as possible. That way they have the most possible opportunity to make plays. So keep an eye on that Manhertz situation, because if he's out, then I'm a lot more in on Ian Thomas. Staying on the Panthers for a second, McCaffrey is out for another week, so Mike Davis versus the Falcons, going to be so chalky in DFS, but probably deserves it, and he should be in any single lineup. Do not ask me a start-sit question involving Mike Davis. Figure it out, or your team is stupid stacked and stop joining 5-team leagues. With the Bengals, Joe Mixon limited on Thursday with a shin injury. He has a chest injury last week that landed him on the injury report on Saturday. He should be fine, but man, stay healthy, Joe. Like, we need you to handle all these touches. Not looking good in this matchup against the Ravens, but with Mixon, with Josh Jacobs, with Derrick Henry, anytime we got these backs that we call them game script dependent, but they're getting 15 plus carries, regardless of what happens, they need to be in starting lineups. Kareem Hunt remains limited with this groin injury. We could see more Deandre Johnson. I know I've really gone off on this guy this week in the pods about how, I didn't want to put a big waiver claim with him. But even with a limited version of Kareem, like, you are not running to start Deandre Johnson. That's the problem. We need Kareem to get completely hurt, out of the picture. That's not the case. Fire up Kareem Hunt as a true RB1. Please do not start Deandre Johnson unless something happens to Hunt, and then we'll talk about whether or not he belongs within the top 25 backs. I would think it'd be more on the border. Although Beckham's still dealing with this back injury, he's limited, but expected to play through it. I think this Colts secondary might be a little bit overrated. They have not really had to face many tough quarterbacks this year, with the exception of Kirk Cousins, who had one of his just kind of classic Doug games. Wouldn't be shocked if OBJ is able to have back-to-back big weeks. I know I've been talking about, trading him in season long, but, again, it's going to be up and down performances, but nothing in the law book says these, boom or bust receivers can't boom 2 weeks in a row. I know OBJ isn't necessarily a boom or bust guy, but in this field stretching role, career high 16-yard average target depth, career low catch rate at this point. I think we are going to see more sporadic production, but in this particular matchup against the Colts, I could see OBJ going back-to-back big weeks. With the Broncos, we got Drew Lock, still limited with the shoulder injury. We'll see what happens there. No Stephon Gilmore with the Patriots, but come on, like it's still pretty tough to feel good about anyone this trip to New England. Philip Lindsay is practicing in full with the toe injury. I think that takes Melvin Gordon, from a top 20 back to probably, more on that RB2 borderline. He's been dominating snaps with Royce Freeman there, but we saw in week 1 Lindsay making that more of a 60-40 to even 50-50 split. So in the rest of the passing game, Judy and Tim Patrick, again, just a matchup. I would try to start someone else, but these are the 2 top receivers in the passing game because Noah Fant not practicing all week with an ankle, KJ Hamler, same thing with the hamstring. If you're in a desperate situation in a deeper league, you could do worse than having a wide receiver like Judy or Patrick who's at least going to be out there every snap. And I'll be more willing to go to Judy in future weeks when the injury is less of a concern. When the matchup is less of a concern. Quick note on Texans tight end Jordan Akins. He's been limited and didn't practice on Wednesday, limited on Thursday. Ankle and concussion. He was someone I was pretty high on the first 2 weeks of the year. He was out there more than almost anyone, but we've seen the snaps drop off, not even last week when he was concussed, but the week before as well. Darren Fells still very involved. Seemed like a situation where Aikens was really taking over that role, but he's not. He is not someone, or Fells, that I am looking to play as long as they're both healthy. With the Jaguars, Laviska Shenault, hamstring injury, looking a little bit banged up. Outside DJ Chark and James Robinson, Gardner Minshew if you want to sign him, but Chark, Robinson, skill position guys, you're not touching anyone else on Jacksonville right now. I think Shenault has the talent, but it's one of these situations, we see it with Curtis Samuel too. You wish that they would just kind of use them as a true wide receiver while getting them a handful of snaps as an RB a game to get some additional touches. It happens a couple times and it looks great, but we just don't see that same sort of role consistently handed out. And until we do, it's going to be tough to really trust him week-to-week basis. All right, I got about 10 more injuries to hit you guys with. One more quick shout out to our sponsor, though. Pristine Auction, brought to you by pristineauction.com. Check out the daily auctions with $1 starting bids on over 8,000 football items up for auction. Pristine Auction guarantees authenticity on every product. Use code PFF for $10 off your first invoice. Currently giving away a signed Amari Cooper jersey. So please rate and review this podcast, and we will be choosing a winner next week. That's pristineauction.com. You can win a signed Amari Cooper jersey, people. Code PFF, rate and review the podcast, and we will be choosing a winner next week. So love that. Love my guy, Coop. All right, moving on to the injuries. Cam Akers with a rib injury, back to a full practice. It's going to be a random as hell backfield using Cam, Darrell Henderson, and Malcolm Brown every single week. It looked like we had, the tell with Henderson doing his thing, but we saw Malcolm Brown pretty much made one nice one-handed catch and then got most of the run for after that last week. So, gun to my head, I think Henderson is the most productive guy at the end of the year, but truly it's going to be random. You can't treat any of these guys as locked in RB2, more of a flex play, and, I would feel much better about having someone else in the lineup. With the Raiders, Bryan Edwards remains out with a foot injury, still not practicing. Henry Ruggs, though, back to a full practice with the knee. So I would just say I wouldn't necessarily expect Ruggs to put up big numbers. Again, they're not really using him underneath or intermediate as you would like to see him, as he did a lot to a bunch of success at Alabama, being used more as a field stretcher, but it just helps open up the rest of the offense. And we've seen that with Deshaun Jackson, Will Fuller throughout their careers, increasing their quarterback's yards per attempt when they're out there. And I think that will make an impact with Derek Carr, who, someone I hate on a lot, but Derek Carr's been playing some great football this year, even if it's not, as aggressive as we would like it. The guy's been efficient and he's putting up multiple touchdowns on a weekly basis these days. So we'll see with that Chiefs game. He is far too cheap on DraftKings. I don't know if I can force myself to pull the trigger just yet, but the fact that, Sam Darnold is literally more expensive than Derek Carr is something else. Dolphins cornerback Byron Jones back to a full practice. So it was interesting because before he got hurt, he was briefly shadowing, which we never saw in Dallas. Not sure how good he is at it, but the amount of money he got and the things we've seen just when he's playing inside the field, obviously not someone you prefer not to be tracking your number one wide receiver. This week, though, against the 49ers, I don't think he's going to be tracking either Debo or Ayuk around the field. So not something to worry about now, but if he does do it this week and moving forward, we wanted to keep an eye on Byron as a shadow corner. Le'Veon Bell with a hamstring injury apparently has a chance to play. He was the featured guy in the first half of the year before he got hurt. They were not using Gore as we thought they might, but no Sam Darnold with a shoulder injury. Who knows with this squad? I mean, if you can avoid playing Jets other than Jamison Crowder, at least for this week until we're sure that Le'Veon's going to be back to a full workload, that would be my recommendation. Eagles wide receiver Alshon Jeffrey with a foot injury going from limited to a DMP. Not great. Not really someone we should be looking to play anyway, especially in this matchup against the Steelers, other than Miles Sanders and, I guess Zach Ertz not really trying to play any Eagles this week. On the other side of the ball, Deontay Johnson, toe injury, Juju Smith-Schuster knee injury. I get the notifications on my phone from the Yahoo app where it's, Deontay Johnson every Wednesday is questionable and every Thursday he's fine. This is like both Deontay and Juju are playing through these injuries. They're going to be DMPs on Wednesday, then they'll be full on Thursdays. It's all good. Don't worry about it. This has been happening every week. 49ers, Jimmy G still limited with the ankle injury. Same thing with Raheem Mostert with the knee injury. If both guys are back, though, I wouldn't be afraid to play them. And just seeing the way the 49ers have handled the Debo, the Kittle injuries, like they're not putting these guys. When Debo did go out there last week and was limited, Shanahan told us that he was going to be limited and ease back in. So I do think this is a rare situation where we can kind of trust the coaching staff. And, if Mostert is out there, I don't think he's going to be out there, for an emergency role like we saw with Leonard Fournette tonight. I think he'll actually be out there to get touches. So wouldn't be afraid to play these guys if they are healthy enough to get out there. A.J. Brown with a knee injury. Fingers crossed, guys. Expect to try to give it a go. I cannot wait. With this knee bruise, he really didn't look 100% in week 1. So hopefully he is feeling better and can go out there because, no one was better last year in yards after the catch. And I understand the naysayers out there screaming regression. No, come back to normal. But look at this Titans offense this year. They're throwing the ball more than ever. They're in a situation against the Bills this week. If they play where they are probably going to have to keep up with Josh Allen and company, that means more and more targets for what look like truly one of the more talented wide receivers in the league. Final note with the Washington football team, Terry McLaurin still dealing with his thigh injury. Just in regards to Kyle Allen news, look, I do not think Kyle Allen is a good professional quarterback. As someone that watched every single one of his snaps from last season, he's someone that can get the job done with his number one receiver and be, fine checking the ball down. I don't think he hurts Terry McLaurin's value at all. McLaurin is the PPR wide receiver 11 right now. I think he's going to continue to be a top 12 wide receiver in fantasy, and I think it's a good sign for Antonio Gibson once he can take over this role to hopefully get fed checkdowns in the CMC role. Again, I don't want to compare a rookie to someone like CMC, but when Ron Rivera did it, and now we got the quarterback that enabled CMC to that record-breaking season last year, it's the ceiling. It's not necessarily the production that's the ceiling for Gibson, but that sort of true every down usage is the ceiling. So awesome stuff there. One more quick shout out, and this is just our PFF sponsor because look, PFF and Sunday Night's Football, Chris Collinsworth, the boss man, is teaming up with one of the best players on and off the field, 49ers All-Pro corner Richard Sherman. The Chris Collinsworth podcast featuring Richard Sherman is available now wherever you find your podcast. They will provide the most interesting football conversation in sports every single week, and sometimes that means the discussion will venture off the field too. Additionally, Chris will be taking a deep dive into the game of football as he sees it, inviting in the best and brightest to talk about everything that's happening in the great game of football. Mark your calendars, and you do not want to miss the best 60 minutes of insight this season. Listen to the first episode with Sherman and Chris, and let me tell you, it is fantastic stuff. So make sure you check that out. All right, everyone, that's going to do it. Thank you, as always, for listening to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. It's crazy we got week 5 here. I feel like we just started here a little bit ago, but as always, coming to you with new episodes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I'm Ian Hartitz. Find me on Twitter at iHartitz. If you have any cool things to say, if you find some cool swag, cool visors, I always appreciate when people give me the ad on something that I know we'll all enjoy. And yeah, so wish everyone the best of luck this week, and take care until next time.
Thanks for watching the PFF YouTube channel, and if you want to subscribe, all you have to do is push the button. Don't forget everything you get. A little fantasy, push the button. A little green line for the gambling aspects of the game, push the button. College football, push the button. The YouTube channel from PFF.